And Eliezer is going to be sent off by Avram Avinu, and we're on page 110. So Avram Avinu sends him off, and then take a look at Pasuk Yud. Pick it up from Pasuk Yud. We're going to have to take this Pasuk by Pasuk as we get to the nitty-gritty. Everybody see that? It's about 10 lines from the bottom of the page, on page 110. He takes 10 camels. He's got all the master's good. How does the article translate that? Set out with all the bounty of his master. Rashi says he had a document which showed that Avram Avinu had bequeathed everything to Yitzchak. That's a good way to attract people to his shidduch. He goes to the city of Nochor. Now, Eliezer is going to say a little prayer over here. And he's looking for, remember, he's looking for the girl who's going to be the chain, the continuation of the Avram and Sarah line. So when he gets to Aram Naharayim, Eliezer says a little prayer.
What was the objection of Avram not taking Eliezer's daughter?
Eliezer, that's a very good question. It says that Eliezer had a daughter, and obviously Eliezer would have loved to have made a shidduch between himself and Avram Avinu, but there was an inherent flaw, because Eliezer comes from the line of Canaan, and Canaan was cursed. And the Medrash even says, Eliezer said to Avram Avinu, what about my daughter? And Avram said, well, Yitzchak is blessed. He's from the sons of Shem, and you come from the Canaan who are inherently cursed. It doesn't mean there's any personal disqualification. But on a general level, it doesn't work well. You cannot see them together. They don't go together. He cursed, one who's inherently cursed, one who's inherently blessed, are by definition unsuitable, and therefore that shidduch isn't going to go. So he says, Vayavrecha gemali mechutz la'ir. He parks the camels outside the city. What's the fancy word for vayavrech? He made the camels kneel down. You see that? It takes 5 words in English to explain one word in Hebrew. Vayavrech. Vayavrech comes from the word berech. Berech is a knee. So it's the verb form of to make them bend their knees down. So it's just one word in Hebrew, vayavrech. And in English it says, well, he made the camels bend down outside the city. El be'er hamayim la'es erev, la'es tseis ha'sho'avos. It's towards evening when the water drawers come out. And in the old days, obviously, when you wanted to meet people, when you want to meet people, nowadays you go to a club. In those days, you used to go to the well, because everybody needed water. So eventually, everybody goes to the well. You're going to meet everybody at the well. You're bound to meet. Everybody needs water. Vayomar, he says the following prayer: Hashem Elokei Adoni Avram, Hakrei na lefanai hayom. Make it happen today. V'asei chesed im Adoni Avram. Do a kindness with my master. Now I'm going to be by the well, and the girls are coming out to draw water. The young lady who I say, please incline your jug and let me drink. The Amra, and then she says, Shesei, drink, I'll give to your camels. That's the one for my master, Yitzchak, for your servant, Yitzchak. And I will know that you have done a kindness with my master. So, there's a big discussion over here. Eliezer goes, he's got to do, he swore to Avram Avinu, I'll get you a girl over there, the one that fits the family. He comes over, he says a prayer, please Hashem, send out a girl, and if I say to her, give me to drink, and she says, I'll give you and your camels a drink, that's the one. That's quite a test for a shidduch. Hi, how are you? Good, what's your name? What's your name? Zelda. Will you give my camels to drink? Oh, how romantic. You're the one for me. And you pull out and you get engaged. Most people nowadays look a little odd. So the commentaries discuss over here a little bit on, there is a prohibition in the Torah to rely on omens. There's a prohibition. It's actually a Torah prohibition. You're not allowed to rely on omens. So a person can't say, well, a piece of bread fell out of my mouth. It's not a good day for an investment. A black cat crossed. It's called superstition. And it's a Torah prohibition. To act on superstition, omens, signs, is a Torah prohibition. So the example Rashi gives, if the black cat, by the way, is not only it's not something nowadays. The black cat says, a black cat crossed my path. Bad luck. Right. So I have, if you walk under, if a mirror broke, it's 7 years bad luck, that sort of thing. If you walk under a ladder is bad luck. Friday the 13th is bad luck. All these things, the number 13, all these things are bad luck. I first of all, I have a suspicion that they're rooted in logic. If a black cat crosses your path, then chances are it's a panther, and that's bad luck. That's pretty bad luck. And if you walk under a ladder, that's bad luck because a bucket of paint could fall on you, the guy could fall on you. There's a certain logic. It's like saying to walk up to three Hell's Angels guys who are blocking the sidewalk and to go up to them and go, "Hey, fellas, that's bad luck." Yeah, you're darn right, that's bad luck. I understand it's probably, I imagine there's a but. It says you're not allowed to read signs. So if a guy says something that's totally not connected, a guy, a piece of bread fell out of his mouth while he was eating, he says, "I better not make my trip to go traveling today." You're not allowed to rely on omens. The superstition is prohibited. If you take action, the prohibition is to take action based on a sign or to remain inactive based on a sign. If you actually act on it or you don't act on it, that's a Torah prohibition. So the commentaries ask over, Eliezer, who was a servant of Avram Avinu, and according to the opinion that they kept the entire Torah. How is Eliezer allowed to go rely on a sign? Please Hashem, if she says to me, drink and I'll give you, that's the one. How could he go and rely on the sign? How's Eliezer allowed to rely on a sign? That's what the commentaries ask. Anybody got an idea?
It's not that kind of sign.
Why?
Because he's saying what he wants. Describing.
Very good, very good. There's a difference between a sign that has zero to do with what's happening and a sign which is exactly, look, I'm looking for a girl who's kind. She's, what's the word? She's kind, she's smart, she's tactful. I'm looking for a package over here, and we'll see the subtleties of the tests that he puts her through, how he sees these signs. So it's like a guy says to you, well, if there are thunderstorms today, I'm not going to go out, I'm not going to go sailing. That's not a sign. That's not a sign. That's a very good reason not to go sailing. If a guy says, I'm not going to sleep in room number 13, that has nothing to do with reality. Although in the University of Mississippi it did, because the University of Mississippi, there was a group of guys who decided to go bungee jumping. And they went on top of a 20-story building, and they decided to, like daredevils, they're going to give themselves about, 4 feet, to have the bungee measure and come within 4 feet of the ground. It's like great fun after you had a couple of six-packs. And, they tied the bungee, and the first guy went off, and they measured it very carefully, and the first guy went off, but they forgot one thing, that most buildings in America don't have a 13th floor. So they didn't take that into account. That was the end of the day's bungee jumping. That was the end of his life's bungee jumping, and that was the end of the day's bungee jumping. So there, the number 13 was definitely unlucky, right? But to say something is unlucky, just because if it has no connection, that's prohibited. But here, you're absolutely right. He's saying, look, I'm looking for a sign. It's like a guy goes out, he says, please Hashem, give me a sign. If the girl has a lot of money, and she's attractive, and she has a lot of money, and she has a nice personality, and she has a lot of money, that's a sign. That's a good logical sign. With two of them, absolutely unimportant. There are only 3 parts of that which are important. That's the money, and the money. And that's a good logical sign. So a guy goes out, Eliezer says, give me a sign, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, something logical to show that this is the girl that I'm going to bring into the home of Avram Avinu. So now look what happens. I watch the subtleties of how this plays out. Vayihihu terem kila ledaber, he had just barely finished speaking. V'hinei Rivka yotzes, Rivka comes out, 3rd line from the top, Asher yulda lebesuel ben Milka eshes nocher achi Avraham. Rivka is born to Besuel, who is the cousin of Avram Avinu, v'kado al shichma, and she's got a jug up on her shoulder. And then the Torah told us, V'anara tova samare ma'od, she's very beautiful, Besula, v'ishlo yeda'ah, she's never been, no man has had anything to do with her. V'atereda aina v'tamale kada v'tal, she goes down into the well, or whatever that thing is called, into the spring, she fills her jug and she comes out. Now, first of all, the commentaries point out over here that, the beauty itself, here she's praised for her beauty. The beauty itself, beauty in and of itself is almost, it's a good thing, but it's not a major factor because the beauty is often going to change based on personality. Sometimes people grow on you, and sometimes people grow against you. And you could often have a very beautiful girl who then when you get to know her, she's absolutely, you can't even look at her. And she's absolutely, completely unattractive because of her personality. You got somebody else who's got an average look, but her personality is so lovely that she grows on you, and you love her for who she is. Here, the Torah praises her for her beauty, and at the same time, the Torah says, but living in a society of completely immoral people, she was a virgin, nobody had anything to do with her, no man was involved with her. So one of the ideas here is, I think you've experienced this yourself in life. Some people create a certain aura about them. And you could be sitting in a room full of people, maybe you'll tell, I'm only using this as an example, but let's say you're sitting around with some guys, you tell an off-color joke. You say something a little inappropriate. Then Rabbi Zweig walks into the room. It's distasteful. You're not going to do it around him. It's different. He elicits a different behavior in you. Sometimes being around higher level people creates a certain respect in you. A girl can actually create that aura around her. Guys are running around and they're immoral and the girls are immoral, but for some reason, I'm not going to corrupt her. She's off limits. There's a certain respect. Where does that respect come from? The person creates his own respect. There are people who will always talk lashon hara. They'll gossip with other people. One person walks into the room who everybody knows is careful not to gossip about other people. Everybody says, let's not talk about that now. Out of respect for that person, you could actually create the aura around you. So the praise of Rivka is she's beautiful, living in an immoral place, yet she's pure. But where does that come from? It comes from the fact that she herself creates that aura. And it's just like a hands-off aura around her. Nobody would even think, because everybody understands she's different. She's a Beis Yaakov girl. Stay away from her. That's the aura created by Rivka. Now, Vayoratza Eved Likrasa, he runs towards her, and the commentaries say that's part of the test. Here's a girl, the Medrash says she was 3 years old. Okay, whatever 3 years old means. If in those days they lived to 180 at the far end, so if they got married when they were 3 or 4 or 6 or 7 years old, we have no idea what that means, that she was 3 years old, maybe it's symbolic, it means the purity of a 3-year-old, whatever it is, here's a girl, and here comes some strange man, Vayoratz Eved, he comes running towards her. That's a test. That's a test. What are you going to do? What's the girl going to do when a man comes running towards her? You understand, sometimes in life, there's a test of who you are based on your instincts. Guys told me in the Israeli Army, the Israeli Air Force, the pinnacle of success in Israeli society is to become a pilot in the Israeli Air Force. That was always the dream of any Israeli kid who doesn't wear glasses, to go to the Air Force. Nowadays, it's not. Nowadays, it's to go to America. But in the old days, it used to be to go to the Air Force. So in the Air Force, I have friends who were Israeli Balchuvas. So one of the guys was telling me once, constantly these guys have to be, what kind of specimen you have to be in the Israeli Air Force. You have to be smart, and you have to be calm, and you have to have quick reactions. You have to be a perfect physical specimen. I think 1 out of 300 who goes into the Air Force gets into a plane, something like that. 1 out of 300 who gets into the Air Force, 1 out of 300. The numbers are ridiculous. Okay, so the guy told me they will constantly test these guys. They're constantly testing them to see if they're qualified. So for example, a guy will come over to one. This is the example he gave me. Guy comes over, the guy says, the commander wants to speak to you in the office. So you knock on the door, and the commander says, come in. You walk into the office, the commander says, Yishai, you didn't close the door. If you turn around to close the door, you will never get into a plane in the Air Force. You can't have people who are not sure if they close the door getting into an F-15. You better know if you close the door. If you say to the commander, I closed the door, you're not qualified. That's not the right reaction. You don't talk to the commander that way. There's only one correct answer. Sir, I closed the door, but if you want me to, I will go back and check on it. That's the correct answer. There's one correct rate. Now, it's not a test. It's like studying for a blood test. You can't prepare for it. Either you got it or you don't. You got to have the correct instinctive response. If you don't have the instinctive response, you've shown yourself as being not quite, you understand? So the same thing over here. He comes running at her, right? Vayomer, a strange man comes running at her. Vayomer hagmini namat mayim mikadech. Give me some water from your jug. A little bit of water from your jug. Okay? Now, look at her reaction. She retains her composure. She doesn't get all of a sudden all rattled. She retains her composure. But she's passed the test. Okay, the guy's running at me. Obviously, he's thirsty. He's desperate. Give me some water to drink. And instead of running away, and she maintains her composure, Vatomer, she says, Shesei Adoni, drink, my master. Very respectful. Very respectful. Here's a strange man coming running over. Vatemaher, and she quickly, Vatored Kada al Yoda Vatashkeo, quickly lowers the jug, and she gives him to drink. So, Vatechala Hashkoso, she finishes giving him to drink. Vatomer, and then she says, Gamli Gmalecha Shav, I will also give to your camels, Ad in kilu lishtos, until they finish drinking. Now, first of all, the commentaries say that was a tremendous test. Camels drink a tremendous amount. It means going down and filling up and going down and filling up. You know, camels have an almost an endless thirst. Number one. Number two, you'll notice, and again, the commentaries go to town on the subtleties of what this young lady is. She says to him, she finishes giving him to drink, and then she says, I will give your camels to drink now. So we see two things over here. She could have said to him right away, I'll give you to drink and I'll give your camels to drink. But she doesn't. She says, I'll give you to drink. She finishes, then she says, and now I'll give your camels to drink. Why? It shows a tremendous tact on her part for three different reasons. Three different reasons. In one statement, three different things he sees. Number one, imagine a guy comes into your house with a dog. Guy comes in with a dog, and you say to him, come on in, I'll give you and the dog something to eat. What did you just do? You put him and the dog in the same category. She say, well, come on, I'll give you and the camel something to drink. Right? You've just put him and the camels in the same category. She doesn't. She says, come on, I'll give you to drink. You finish drinking, now I'll give to the camels. Separate category, number one. Number two, even for a few moments in life, she says, here, I'll give you to drink. He finishes, now I'll give the camels to drink. Had she said it originally, it would be somebody talking about what they intend to do before they're doing it. There's no reason in life to talk about what you intend to do. When you get there, you do it. So you say, well, I'll give you and the camels to drink, but you're not about to give the camels right now. You're only giving the man right now. So to talk about giving the camels to drink means you are talking about what you plan on doing. Very subtle, very subtle. Only a few minutes break. But it means that she's got the midah of not talking about herself. Why talk about it? When you get there, you'll talk. You understand? Number three, there's another subtlety here. You know, there's a story the Gemara says, two Amoraim were sitting at a table. Rav Nachman and Rav Yitzchak. They were sitting at a table. You know, there's a halacha, you're supposed to say Dvar Torah at the table. They were sitting at the table. So Rav Nachman said to Rav Yitzchak, say a Dvar Torah. So Rav Yitzchak said to Rav Nachman, Ein mesichin b'seuda. You do not talk at the meal. Why? Shema yaktim kana leveshit. Because if you talk at a meal, a person could choke. You don't talk. That's what Rav Yitzchak's response was, to Rav Nachman. After the meal, Rav Yitzchak said, Yaakov Avinu did not die. That was his Dvar Torah. Says Yaakov Avinu didn't die. So Rav Nachman said, but what do you mean he didn't die? It says openly in the Torah that they embalmed him and they what do you call it? They embalmed him. Of course he died. They buried him, they embalmed him. He says, look, Mikrani Dorish, there's a pasuk, and based on the pasuk, there's a drasha, Yaakov Avinu didn't die. So the commentaries ask over here, first of all, what's going on here? You know, you don't talk at a meal. So you wait till after. I understand you don't talk at the meal. But why is it that after Rav Yitzchak, when they finished the meal, Rav Yitzchak said a Dvar Torah? I mean, of all Dvar Torahs, why did he pick that Dvar Torah? Yaakov Avinu didn't die. Why did he pick that Dvar Torah? He could have picked, there's a big Torah out there. He could have talked about the laws of the Tilas Yadayim. He could have talked about a lot of different things. Why did he pick that Dvar Torah specifically? So the Ben Ish Chai, yeah, one of yours, Daniel, yes. The Ben Ish Chai says like this, you see, why shouldn't you talk at the meal? If somebody asks you, why don't you talk at the meal? What's the danger? Choking. Who's it a danger for?
The one eating.
What's that?
The one who has food in his mouth.
The one has food in his mouth. So he says, well, it's the one talking, if he has food in his mouth. But Rabbi Yitzchak wanted to make a point, it's not only for the one who's talking. It could be a danger for the one who's listening as well. You're sitting there eating, and somebody says a joke at the table. All of a sudden, you start cracking up with food in your mouth. Or somebody says something shocking, and you react. So Rav Yitzchak purposely picked something that would shock Rav Nachman. He said, Yaakov Avinu didn't die. So what do you mean he didn't die? But the Torah said, that's exactly why you don't say Dvar Torah at the meal. If I would have said that Dvar Torah at the meal and you had food in your mouth and you would also react because it's such a shocker, you could have checked. You weren't ready for it. That was what he was trying. That was the point he's trying to make. That's what the commentary is saying in the Gemara over there. Okay, so there's halacha. You don't talk at the meal. You talk with food in your mouth, and you have to be careful not to say something too shocking or too funny, unless somebody's drinking. Now here, she says, okay, here, take something to drink. Now if she, as he starts drinking, if she would say, and I'll give your camels to drink as well, that might be a shock to him. Wow, somebody's going to actually give my camels to drink. But he's in the middle of drinking. What could happen? He'd start choking. Certainly look undignified, even if you don't die from, it's not like, so what's it called? What they torture the guys? Water surfing? What's that thing called? Surfboarding? What's it called? Waterboarding. It's not necessarily waterboarding. But a guy's drinking, also say, imagine the guy's drinking, say to him, oh, by the way, you just won $1 million. What are you saying? That's what it'd be like to say, well, he started to drink. He said, well, I'm going to give her camels to drink also. So in order to avoid putting him in that situation, she waits. So in one sentence, she's passed 3 tests. Number 1, she's tactful. She doesn't put him and the camels in the same category. Number 2, she's humble. She doesn't talk about what she intends to do till she gets there. And number 3, she doesn't want to endanger him and put him into a situation where he could look bad. You know the story about the psychologist? There's a guy, very old man, old Mr. Murphy wins $10 million in a drawing. So they call his family, the lottery people call his family. They say, the old man Murphy won $10 million. So the family's got a problem, you got to tell him that he won $10 million, that could be a shock to the system. He's an elderly man, how are you going to break the news? So they hire an expert psychologist. So the psychologist comes in, he says, Mr. Murphy, what would you do, what would your reaction be if I told you you won $100? She goes, well, I'd keep $50 and I'd give you $50. So the psychologist says, what would your reaction be if I told you won $1,000? Well, I'd take $500, give you $500. Says, what would your reaction be if I told you won $10 million? He says, well, I'd take $5 million, I give you $5 million. Psychologist had a heart attack and died on the spot. So the shock, a person in a situation of shock, a person can be in a situation of shock, and she doesn't want to shock him. And therefore you see the tact, okay? Now, you'll notice all of this has taken place. What hasn't he done so far? He hasn't asked her who she is. Take a look. Go down to verse 22. Vayehi kasher kilu agmalim lishtos, when the camels finished drinking. Vayikach ha'ish nezem zohav beka mishkolo. He takes a golden, how did he call it? A golden earring or a golden nose ring. Ushnei tzmidim, 2 bracelets al yadei asor zav mishkolo. He gives her the things because he knows that she's passed the test. He knows she's the one, so he doesn't even know. Now, as a formality, he says to her, Vayomer bas mi'at, who are you? Hagidi noli, tell me, hayesh beis ovich makom lono lonely, is there a place in your father's house for us to sleep? Vatomer elov bas besuel anochi, I'm the daughter of Besuel, ben Milka asher yolda lenochar. First of all, you answer first things first. You ask me who I am, I'm the daughter of Nochar, of Besuel. Vatomer of gam teven gam mispo ravi manu gam makom. Got plenty of place to sleep. Answer the questions in order. The commentaries ask over here, and again, it's very subtle. Eliezer is testing. Remember, he's got a test to find out why does he only ask her now. Why when she first came out? Remember, when Eliezer is looking for the girl, if the girl's not from Avraham Avinu's family, he's not going to marry her anyway. So no matter what she does, if she's not from Avraham Avinu, it doesn't qualify. I mean, logically, if you were Eliezer, what would you do? Girl comes by and says, hi, what's your name? Oh, Rivka, where do you come from? Well, my father's Besul. Oh, okay. Gee, I'm thirsty. Then we could test her, right? Why does he wait till now to ask her who she is? And even more, that we'll add to that. Why doesn't he go to the house? Just go straight to the house and see how they treat him in the house. Why does he go to the water hole? Put 2 of them together. Why both of them together? Why go straight to the house? Why play games? Why wander around the water hole?
Why does he give her gifts even before
Because he's sure. The question, but why originally didn't he ask her name or just go to the house? Wouldn't it be easy? You're going to look for the members of Avram's family. Come to town. Where does Basua live? Go to the house and see if there's any girls there who are qualified. Why does he do this all at the water hole and he doesn't even ask her name? Remember, you're Eliezer. Remember, put yourself in his place. You got to carry out a test over here. You want it to be an accurate test. So part of the idea is, and the two are very closely linked. If you go to the house, I don't know, her parents are home. She wants to make a good impression on her parents. She has to do it because the parents are around. It's not a fair test. Maybe that's not really who she is. You're going to the home. You were taught when strangers come to the house, open the door and ask them to come in and give them something to drink. I don't know what's going on in the house. At the water hole, it's going to be a much more fair test. Nobody's around at the water hole to watch her. There's nobody. She's not impressing anybody. So you get a greater sense of the test. And that's why he doesn't ask her name. Because sometimes if everybody knows if you know your name, you represent your name, so then I'm doing it because of the name, because I know word's going to get back to my parents. Either they'll reward me, I'll get into trouble. That's also not a fair test. I want a young lady who thinks that I don't know who she is, and she's acting on her own, she's acting out in public where nobody's around, and let's see how she behaves now to a perfect stranger. If for a perfect stranger she's able to, that's a test, that's a sign of her that's a sign of her generosity and her kindness. She is a suitable replacement for Sarah Ibenu to take her place in the tent. Okay, now he gives her she goes back to the house. Now I want to show you something. Skip on ahead, because this is a very, very curious little sequence that takes place. Take a look in Pasuk 28 on page 114. Third line from the top. Now watch this, you got to stay with the sequence. We're going to see 3 psukim now, and you got to look at the sequence. A beautiful, beautiful understanding over here, but it really very puzzling. Take a look at this. Vatorat Zanara, she runs. Vataged lebeis ima, she goes to her mother's house. Kadvori Meila. She goes and tells everything. Girl runs home. Hey, I met a guy. Gave me, I gave him water. You look at these. He's got bracelets. You got a golden nose. A lot of gold over there. A lot of gold. Now look at the next pasuk, 29. Ula Rivka och ushmo Lavan. Rivka has a brother named Lavan. Lavan means what? White. Now of all the characters in the Torah that we're going to meet, this is the guy I've always admired most. He is the con man par excellence. He's the guy, and everybody has somebody in the Torah you relate to as yourself. You see yourself in him. This is my man. Right? This is Lavan, the kind. If you knew what I did to my brother, this is Lavan. He is the con man par excellence. And his name is even Lavan. What does that tell you? White. What's white? Pure, clean. Lavan. Those are the guys you got to be careful of. His name is Lavan. What an irony. The biggest deceiver in the Torah, and his name is Lavan. He's white. We had a guy in Chicago named, there was a guy, a mafia leader. He was called the Teflon Don. He was called the Teflon Don because nothing stuck. Right? Nothing stuck. They could never get a rap on him. He was called the Teflon Don. Who was that? Was that Gotti? That was John Gotti. He eventually died in prison. But eventually they got him. But he was called the Teflon Don because nothing stuck. They couldn't get a rabbit. This is the Teflon Don over here. Lavan, I'm white. What the heck? You show me something. You haven't got anything on him. We know he's no good and we can't get anything on him. Now, pay attention very carefully. Look inside very carefully. This is so subtle. Now, pay attention again. She runs home. She's got a brother, Rivka Achush Lavan. Now, look at this. It's absolutely out of order. Vayorotz Lavan el ha'ish hachutz elai. And Lavan runs out to the man. Why is he running out? Your little sister comes into the house with gold and tells you there's a guy out there giving out gold. Lavan goes running. Okay? Now look at the next pasuk. Vayihi kiroses hanezem, when Lavan saw the nose ring, v'esatzminim, and the bracelets, ayidei achos, on his sister's hands, ukishamo es divrei Rivka achoso lemor, when he heard her words, ko diber Elijah, is what the man said to me, vayavo el ha'ish, he comes to the man, v'hinei, and behold, omeid ala gemalim ala ayin. He's standing by the camels by the water hole. Anything bother you over here? Anything bother you over here?
Lovin went out and stood by.
Lavan runs out to the man who's standing there by the water hole, which is Eliezer. Okay, but look at Pasuk 29 and look at Pasuk 30. You should see a blatant problem between Pasuk 29 and Pasuk 30. Let's read it again. Pasuk 29 says like this: Ula Rivka achu shmo Lavan. Rivka has a brother named Lavan. Vayoratz Lavan Elisha chutza. He runs out to the man outside by the well. Right? The next Pasuk says, when he saw the bracelets and the nose ring and the bracelets, and he heard what she said, he went out to the man, Vayava Elish, let's say he ran, and there he is, behold, he's standing by the camels at the water. What bothered you? What should bother you here?
He's already outside when the Torah's telling us he's now looking at the...
Exactly, I mean, it's out of order. It says he ran out to the man, and it says, and he saw the bracelets, and he saw the thing, and he came over to the man, and hey, v'hinei, surprise, he's standing by the camels. The word v'hinei always indicates surprise. What's really going on here? What's really going on here? Doesn't seem to make any sense. Something's out of order, right? You see the problem. Everybody see the problem. So the answer is like this. You see, what's the worst thing you could do in a business deal? What's the worst thing if you're a businessman? What's the worst thing you could do? Show that you're too eager. The more eager you are, the more you lose your leverage. If you're eager, you lose your leverage, right? So Robin's first reaction is gold. He starts to run. And he sees the bracelet. Not that he physically sees the bracelets. In his mind's eye, he sees the nose rings and he sees the bracelets. Whoa, 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 whoa. Let's stop the running. Vayovo, he walks over to the man. V'hinei is this expression of, hi. Oh, hi. I didn't know you're, excuse me, who are you? All of a sudden, Lavan's acting surprised. This is exactly where he's going to. And what a surprise, there's a man standing out there by the camels. See, Lavan is a businessman. Lavan's not stupid. Lavan's first reaction is, let's run out there. Ooh, what's that? That's going to blow the whole thing. He starts walking out there, smoking his cigar, comes walking over to the guy, because in his mind's eye, he sees golden bracelets. He goes there walking over, oh, hi, who are you? Surprised. That's all part of his ploy. That's all part of Lavan's ploy, because he understands that's why he's Lavan. That's why he's Lavan. Somebody once explained that on a much deeper level, why is this guy called Lavan? Why is this guy called Lavan? You know the story I told you once about the kid who comes up to his parents? Father and mother sitting at the dinner table. Son walks over and says, hey, Mom, Dad, why do brides dress in white? So the mother says, well, white is a symbol of beauty and purity. Father puts on newspaper, says, that's not the reason. All major home appliances come in white, right? So that's a joke, gentlemen. So white is always a symbol of beauty and purity. Why is this guy called Lavan? The answer is, when you have something white, there's absolutely no limitation on it. White opens up all possibilities without limit. Lavan is such a schemer, such a con man. He's Lavan. I'll do anything that I have to do within the framework. I'll do anything. I'll work it out any way I want. I got no limitations on me. This is a man without limitations. He's the most dangerous man. He's Lavan. Everything goes to justify the ends which I'm pursuing. That's the most dangerous man in the world. Yeah.
Could he have gone in and out of his house twice? Because when it says later on that he's cleared out the house, could that indicate he's been in and out twice?
It could be physical. It could be, but in the context of the pasuk, it doesn't make any sense. Now, there is another explanation here. Very interesting. It's very interesting. You see, where it says, go back to verse 29 for a second. Ula Rivka ach ushmo Lavan. Now, the commentaries say, the Orach Chaim is one of the classic commentaries, says, often in the Torah, you see the word somebody, it says either ushmo something, like it says ushmo Lavan. Sometimes it says the opposite, says novel shmo. There's a bad man named Novel. In this man Novel, it says his name, and then it says Novel was his name, as opposed to his name was Novel. So we have a rule based on the Gemara that whenever it says the name first, that means the person was evil. And when it says, and his name was so-and-so, that means he's a tzaddik. Here, it uses the very strange term. It says, Ushmo Lavan, which is the description you would use for a tzaddik. Now, at one level, it could very well be that's part of Lavan's deception. That, he got people thinking he's a tzaddik, which is the most dangerous. But the Orach Chaim says a completely different explanation. You know what the Orach Chaim says? Rivka comes into the house, and to use your expression, gentlemen, she says, hey, there's a guy out at the well, he's hitting on me. At the well. And Lavan's got this pure little sister. Even the worst behaving guy, a guy's a thug, and a guy's immoral, and a guy's out of control, but there's something protective of, don't mess up my brother, don't mess up my sister. You've seen that in life, right? I've met guys who are not they come from families, they've left the Torah path, but they threaten people, don't mess with my younger brother's in yeshiva. If you mess him up, right? I messed up, but don't mess with my younger brother. He's a good kid. Lavan's got a sister who's a good kid. Nobody messes with her. And Lavan was running out because Lavan was going to kill Eliezer. That's what the commentary said. His first intention was, this guy's getting fresh with my sister. I'm going out to straighten him out. At that moment, he's a tzaddik. At that moment, Ushmo Lavan. He was standing up because immorality, blatant public immorality, is not acceptable. And at that moment, he started running out in a fit of anger because he's standing up for her virtue. That some strange man is coming and he's starting up with my sister. That's what the Orach Chaim says. But then his better senses get a hold of him, and he drops his momentary lapse into righteousness, and he sinks right back into who he is, and now he's ready to continue with his plan to make the most of the situation. That's the idea. Okay. Very quickly, because we're out of time. We'll finish this up tomorrow or Tuesday, and then we're going to go on to Parshas Told Us. Okay.